Oh, hello. So hello, Max and Kate. Lovely for you to join us here on this webinar, which is about how associate support helped embed co-production in Herefordshire. And we're doing this as part, as you know, as part of co-production week. And we just thought it would be useful, really, because the forum's had a really interesting journey over the last couple of years in terms of how the forum's developed and how you've embedded co-production. And we also thought that might be useful for forums who perhaps haven't used the support of an associate to help them develop the forum or make it stronger, or had any issues where they've needed to bring associate in. And it might be helpful to see how forum has used the associate to help them. So really lovely that you could join us here today. First of all, I ought probably to say what an associate is. So Contact's got a core support offer where we support forums, and each forum has a regional advisor who they can talk to and get support from. But we also have across the country lots of associates who have a range of different experiences, and we will sometimes bring those in if forums are having particularly tricky things they need to resolve. Or indeed, if there is an area where there isn't a forum and we need to try and work with parents to set one up. So that, Kate, that is your role as the forum associate that works with Herefordshire. So when I first met the Herefordshire forum, I came to one of your steering group meetings, Max, and what I was struck with was you had loads of people on your steering group from lots of different organisations, which was absolutely fantastic, but it didn't really feel like it was an organisation in its own right, and I wonder if that's how it felt for you.
Yes, so I'm Max, I'm a vice chair from Parent Carer Voice Herefordshire, and we went through a sort of fairly fundamental change, I think a year and a half, couple of years ago now, where we were hosted within another carers organisation, and then we became independent. And that was a whole different ballgame for us. Previously, we'd had an awful lot of support and admin support and organisation, and now all of a sudden we had to take all that on ourselves, which was huge for us and really daunting. And there was also a fundamental shift with how we worked as an organisation. Previously, it was very much a support group, come along, tell us what your issues are, and we may write a letter to the local authority or something similar. Whereas where we are currently today, it's a completely different way of working. It's much more co-production. We're much more of a strategic partnership. So the journey from there to where we are now has been huge.
Yes, you're right. I remember everyone sort of saying that they just felt like they were reacting to things that were happening at the local authority. It didn't really feel like parents were shaping the agenda. You were just kind of almost like a consultation group where things had already happened and you were reacting to those. And I think at that point, as you said, you had been hosted by an organisation that's the remit of that organisation was about supporting carers more generally, and that circumstances for them changed and they could no longer host you. And I think it was at that point we thought, well, actually, this is an opportunity to just re-envisage the way that you work completely and try and make it a parent-led forum. So at that point, the group of parents asked Contact if we would hold the grant in the area while we tried to look at a completely different model. And I think at that point, Kate, that's when you came in and started working with the forum on actually creating, in effect, a new forum in the area.
Yeah, it was, I think I also met the steering group for the first time when it was largely made up of representatives from other organisations, Max, and that although some of those were also parents, it felt like it was an organisation that didn't have a huge number of parents in it that were very active, and that I understood that was something else that you guys kind of needed to shift a little bit as well, like you say, sort of make a shift in the way that you were working.
There was a whole sort of power balance shift, rather than just us whoever could turn up and just be talked at and sort of asked the odd questions, whereas now we've got an awful lot of parents involved. We're communicating across a lot more different parents, and we're shaping the agenda quite often. And you know, we've got our plan, we've got our priorities, we've each got our individual roles, and all of that, Kate, you help shape for us.
Yeah, I remember one of the things. Sorry, I remember one of the things was writing the application, wasn't it? Was actually, you know, starting from scratch and sort of saying, right, what would we put in an application? What would we think we need to do to take things forward in a way that we wanted to do? But there was also some work that Kate did around, you know, identifying roles within the organisation and trying to make it an organisation and deciding how you'd make decisions from then onwards, wasn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I remember when Debbie, I think Debbie was kind of catapulted into being an interim chair. she said she felt like she was a rabbit in the headlights, and of course that's a really difficult moment, because Max, what you've described is a real willingness to change and move into a different gear. Of course, then suddenly, well, how do we do this then? There's lots of goodwill and a huge amount of energy and lots of ideas, but somehow it's about shaping that, isn't it? It's literally shaping perhaps the steering group or the committee or whatever name you want to use at that point. And also taking a moment then to say, well, what would we want our outcomes to be? And I think, of course, Sue, like always, there's this moment, isn't there? It was grant application time, and what's going to come first, the chicken or the egg? And I think we were doing a lot right at the beginning there. We were talking about outcomes at the same time as saying, right then, what does a treasurer do? You know, these kind of questions around infrastructure.
Yeah, but very much the parents at that time were saying, and it says that in the referral, they were saying that they wanted a more parent-led way and to adopt a more strategic approach and develop a stronger relationship with the local authority. So I think at that point we thought, we're not just going to try and set up a new forum and you know, with its own, you know, decision-making structures and things in this area. We also need to completely re-envisage the way this organisation is going to work with the local authority and the CCG. So it was a big ask, and I think it was decided at the time that we would try and use the National Alliance of Partnership Workings quality indicators of co-production to do that. And I've just popped those up on the screen there, and I wondered, Kate, if you could, Kate and Max, if you could just talk through how those helped you to look at co-production.
I think, should I just say a little bit first, Max, about how we approach this? Because of course, co-production is the how of the what. I always say when I'm kind of trying to introduce them. It's these are values. These are intrinsic values about a way of working. They don't tell us how to do it, but they're a way to measure how it feels to do it. And there was definitely a feeling from the committee that they wanted to be working in a different way, and that they wanted to be working with the local authority in a different way. And so, of course, co-production became a key outcome that you were aiming for through your first year, wasn't it, Max?
Yeah, it's through developing this process, we've developed a whole new relationship with our local authority. So we have a number of co-production sessions where we invited local authority, our local health trusts, and a number of different parts within the local authority. And we sat down on each of those 4 areas. We looked at where we were, what sort of things were working well, what weren't working well, and sort of scored each of the areas. And that was a really interesting and open way where we all sat around and did that in a really novel way for us, where we sort of took responsibility of what was working well, what wasn't, and actually what we could do to start improving some of these. And we each went away with little tasks to do to try and bump up our scores, so to speak. And we revisited those each time we met and looked at how we were doing and where had improvements been made, where did we still need to do work. So it's really brought a much better open relationship with certainly the local authority and the Wye Valley Trust in our area to make things better for parent carers and their children.
And Kate, did it help having that structure when you were having those discussions with you know, all of these different professionals and with the members of the forum that had taken on what were quite new roles?
Absolutely. The structure that the structure that the toolkit gives around co-production is I think it's really clever. It's clever in its simplicity. For anybody that hasn't used it before, you know, there's just basically four areas of four principles, I guess, and they're ways of measuring how each of those areas are going, as Max described, and what we did in those groups. You can see from the photograph there, we got people into pairs where there was one parent and one parent carer and one a strategic partner from each agency, just discussing really in a very, I think the word that comes to me, Max, is quite safe way. I think it's very easy to sit around a table like that and end up, without a structure like that, end up just having, well, we said, well, you said, well, we think, well, you think. And actually, this is a much safer way of just looking at the indicators and saying, well, how are we communicating? Are we really doing that? What kind of measure would we give ourselves? Is that good? Do we think we could improve? And it's a very equal way of doing it, because it doesn't really come across. I don't know if you felt this, Max, but it doesn't come across that there's any blame, but that there has to be a mutual solution to problems around co-production. And I don't know if you can see that from the pictures, but I remember that particular workshop.
Yeah,
and it was a lovely atmosphere, actually.
I don't think we'd be, without you being there as a neutral person driving this process, I don't think we would have ever felt on equal footing, because it was about us both working collaboratively together to get to our end goals. Again, like you said, there was no blame, there was no he said, she said. It was just, this is where we think we are, how do we move forward? And it was just, it really built a really good relationship with all the partners there.
With
Max,
a huge
really
amount of mutual trust, actually. Yeah.
It is.
Sorry, Sue.
Max, that's really interesting you saying that, because I think just thinking about other forums who, you know, may never have got anybody outside to come in and do any facilitation work. And I think what you're saying is that, you know, that helped with both of the things you were trying to do. One, to set up an organisation that in a different way where you could move forward, but also to re-envisage that relationship with your strategic partners. There was another piece of work I know that was about becoming more of a collective voice and how you were going to do that engagement. But I'm just looking back on it, there's only 2 years ago, from where you were as kind of almost like a bit of a feeling maybe like part of a much bigger organisation, and also feeling like you were just reacting to things that the local authority were doing and being very responsive, to what you are now, which is a very strong forum, and where co-production is day to day, is part of your day-to-day running. So I just wonder if I can have a look now at what some of the aims were of that associate support, and ask you, Max, if how you think having somebody external come in and support you with those, how that worked. So one of the first things was that parents would feel confident in their roles. You know, when I met you, there weren't any roles. There was just one person who was the chair, who was the main person who went to things. You didn't really have a structure. So did having Kate's support help people take on active roles in the forum?
It did. I mean, there were a couple of sort of long, heavy meetings where we were trying to decide what all the different roles were and who could do that. And there was a real sort of a really interesting approach where it was, we literally drew a line in the sand and said everything before that we forget about. This is moving forward and this is where we go from now. And it did. That was a challenge for ourselves, just to go, okay, the past is the past. Now we're moving forward, strength to strength. Let's see how we can do that. And that was a really lovely approach that we wouldn't have been able to do ourselves, without a doubt. And Kate also offered a number of training sessions to help make parents feel more comfortable. I didn't manage to attend any of those because of childcare, as it always happens, but I had really good feedback from parents who did attend.
Yeah, so that was parent rep training, I think, and also some treasurer training and some committee skills training, if I remember rightly, Kate.
Yeah, they were very low, sort of. I deliberately made them a very low-key, training. Sometimes I just approach these not as training sessions, but as just gathering information. You know, there's a group of 6 people sitting around this table, and I'd be very, very surprised if the skills weren't already there. We just need to know how to draw them out. For somebody that's feeling very unconfident, sometimes it's just to say, well, what are the things that you do well? You know, I'm really good at taking notes. Okay, well, is that something that a treasurer needs to do? Is that something that a secretary needs to do? You know, it's those kind of it's not teaching people how to do this, because I think so many parent carers have got so much experience of different support groups they may have been part of, the professional life that they've had themselves outside of their parent carer forum, outside, you know, before they had children, and people kind of get forget, I think sometimes, you know, how skilled they are as a group, and this is an incredibly skilled group, and some of the issues were just around confidence, actually, Sue, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know if you feel
and
that,
what people
Matt.
enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's about what people enjoy doing, you know, when you've been struggling for a while and a few things have just fallen on a few people, it's sometimes, you know, quite hard, isn't it, to think, oh gosh, I could never do that. But actually, if you break down the roles in a forum, and I know we've got other webinars where we talk about all the different things that need doing, if you can get people in the roles that they enjoy, then you've got a forum that starts to feel very vibrant and, you know, positive, and that people are, you know, excited about what they're doing and their role in it. And I definitely saw that in Herefordshire, you know, as the group grew. You know, people were taking on new roles, doing new things, that really began to sort of feel like it was it had its own identity, and very clear from the beginning that they wanted to be independent. You know, not all forums do, but that was that group, and I think that's because it had so many reps from so many different organisations. There was so much experience there. We just needed a structure about how you were going to be this collective voice and how you were going to make decisions and shape how it is in the area. So yes. And another one of the aims was about feeling on a surer footing with the LA as a strategic partner. And I think we have sort of covered that the indicators were really important in doing that. But also, you know, the local authority were open to changing things. And I think having those, you know, discussions around the table with a facilitator did seem to help, you know, having somebody new in the room from contact with the, you know, saying we want to make the forum, you know, a stronger strategic partner, you know, will you work with us on this? I think that was a really sort of positive way forward.
At the end of that process as well, Max, do you remember the third workshop that we did when I kind of said goodbye? You know, that's it, that's the deal. You know, I've worked through a year and we've done 3 workshops, and you guys are getting on with this work. It feels like it's embedded. And one of your strategic partners said, we just need to carry on this group. I can't remember her name, but she, you know, and there was a ripple around the room. Do you remember that, Max?
That was Sue Moody, our rep from Wide Valley Trust, who deals with therapy services, outpatient therapy services. And, you know, that is a really huge area where we get complaints about waiting lists and things like that. So to be able to say, well, we're on speaking terms with the head of that area, you know, we can pass your concerns on, we can feedback information, and it's a really good relationship that we would not have had we not gone through this process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to take time as well, Sue. There's both of these strands need to take time. I think the co-production work takes time. It took us a year, didn't it? We had 3 workshops in 12 months. And obviously in between, small subgroups were meeting, and some of those indicators were building the scores as we went through the year. But I think the developing the infrastructure for an organisation takes a long time. And one of the things we said at the beginning was, look, let's not rush to have the first AGM. Don't be afraid to call yourselves an interim committee. You know, you don't have to set anything in stone. And when I did the session on you know, chairing skills, everybody said, but isn't that just for the chair? And I said, well, no, you know, the chair just might not be there one day, and which one of you is going to chair the meeting? And this kind of sharing of skills, I really feel is something that the steering group in Herefordshire does really well. Actually, I've got that sense that there's that people help each other out, and it doesn't all fall on one person. Do you feel that, Max?
Yes, it's certainly more challenging now given our current situation, but yes, it is. There's a lot of support there.
Yeah.
And then the forum did, you know, was in a position to hold the grant. Once you had that infrastructure and the, you know, offices in place, and you had a strong identity, and you were starting to, you know, hear about what parents' concerns were, then you put the application into the DFE, and you have remained since then as you wanted to be, and an independent forum, just working with other partners rather than being hosted by another organisation.
Yeah. we've certainly achieved that, which is brilliant. And another of my favourite bits is about making sure our outcomes are reflected or reflect the conversations and the challenges we feel parents across Herefordshire are dealing with. So we've helped sort of shape what it is we want to be tackling and line those up into outcomes which line up with the grant. So I say that it really feels like we could have a difference in Herefordshire, and that is quite novel for us, and it'll be really lovely to see it progressing, which I can give updates on.
Yes. So we're now involved with it now. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but what I was hearing the other day from the forum was that you still are doing some of these sessions online, aren't you? You know, meeting with your partners in forums online to discuss things like the HCP process, some early years work, I think.
Yes. So we haven't had an awful lot of engagement because, as everyone feels, it's got a bit busy, and all of a sudden you're working and caring at the same time. But we held a online webinar about educational healthcare plans, where we invited a number of parents to come and discuss what issues they were having, and also representatives for the local authority, so they could directly answer those questions there and then. So unfortunately, it's one of those where my computer died completely, so I could see the chat going on, and I heard it was very good, but I didn't see that myself in true style at the moment. But that was a really good way of doing it. And we had a SEND seminar the sort of following week where it was all parent carer led, and we all discussed each of our issues in turn. And part of that was identifying what our next webinars were going to be and who would be best represented from the strategic partners. So that was amazing. So we've got a number of different webinars set up to tackle each of our priorities that we've set out in our grant to help move those forward and bring parents and professionals together.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's great, Max. That's really good news. That's great.
It is. It feels good.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean it is just an incredible journey that you've been on in 2 years. And you know, I think it's good for other forums to hear what you're saying, that sometimes it can be really helpful to have somebody external come in to help you, do a skills audit, to draw out what experiences and skills you've got, to help you have those sometimes tricky conversations about what you as a group want, and to have a strategy for going forward. And I think it has been really helpful. I mean, I've just put these up because so basically that web link there is about the support that's available for forums. So you've got your advisor, you've also got the potential, if you want to use your grant, to use the support of one of the associates or one of the trainers that Contact has details for, to support your forum, whether it's you wanting to the forum to be stronger, you want to look at your governance, or you're having some issues with internally conflict within the forum, or with a local authority or another partner. That's all sort of times when it might be helpful to consider or chat it through with your advisor about whether an associate might be helpful in helping you bring that on.
Yeah, I can completely support that. We wouldn't be where we are today had we not had Kate come in and help us set up the forum originally, develop our sort of outcomes and develop that into the grant application, and put us on a level footing with our strategic partners. That has been absolutely incredible for us to be able to get as far as we have, and that's all due to the help and support we had from Kate.
Well, also the fantastic group of parents that you are, because you have worked incredibly hard. But that's
directing
brilliant.
us, because otherwise we'd still be meeting and discussing what on earth's going on. So it helped focus what we needed to do.
Yeah, I've put up the co-production framework too, because it is something that some forums and local authorities have just used. It is actually a framework where you can use it as a tool yourselves if you want to do it. And I know also some forums have used those values, as you said, Kate, those co-production values within their forum, sort of saying to themselves, are we acting in a way where people feel welcome and cared for? Do we feel that? Are we making sure that our parents and people engaging with the forum feel included? So they can be really sort of transformational, and like you say, it's about how it feels. And I think that's not often the way we work, is it? But how it feels is the most important thing.
And I think it's difficult to sometimes to ask for help. So I think it's very difficult to know when to ask for help if you're head down in a piece of work, and you kind of know roughly where you're going, and you just want to keep head down going. And sometimes you need to just put your head up and say, right, let's have a little conversation about how we're doing this. Is this the best way possible? Can we just take a breather? And sometimes I think having an associate is it's like taking a deep breath and looking at things afresh, and then kind of saying, okay, maybe we just need a slightly new direction, and getting that kind of help.
Yeah, well, that's been really interesting, and I hope other forums will, consider whether that some of these tools that you've used in Herefordshire might be useful. So yeah, no, thanks so much, and it's been really fantastic seeing how you've grown over the last 2 years, and where you are today. So well done, everyone. It's been really super. Well
yes,
done,
Debbie, our chair, definitely, and the rest of the steering group.
All right. Well, thanks very much to Kate and Max for joining us and talking us through the co-production journey. I hope that's been useful to other forums too. And as I say, there's some links there that you might want to explore yourselves. But any doubts or anything you think you might want to discuss, you need a bit more support on, do talk to your regional advisor. If you don't know who they are, then you can use our generic email, which is parentparticipation@contact.org.uk. And we'll be pleased to discuss how you too might want to bring things forward, either using support from our core offer or the support of an associate to help you develop the forum. Thanks very much, both of you.
Thank you. That's fine. Right. Thank you.